Welcome, viewers. Today we've got an interview with David Reinold, author of Pretty in Pink. Please welcome David Reinold, author of Pretty in Pink.
Hello.
And our co-host today is ShadowPaint. I'm your host, FreeHomeBrew.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, that's ShadowPaint. Let's get into these questions here.
Yeah.
Let's start with an icebreaker. David, can you give us a short introduction of yourself?
Well, you know, I do a lot of writing in the fandom, but I do also do a lot of original writing too. I'm a huge fan of music. I absolutely love classical masterpieces and like sadder songs. I don't know. I just like art in general.
Okay.
Art is kind of me.
Okay. How'd you get into the fandom? Did you get here through art links or just the interwebs? Or how'd you get into the fandom?
That's a fun story. A friend of mine at school had told me he'd kind of, you know, it was early in the fandom. It was like March of 2011, and he kind of came to me with a confession. He's like, I got to tell you something, and you got to promise not to tell anybody. I like My Little Pony. and you know, I have the sort of poker face expression, like okay, I'm okay with this. And he says, no, seriously, you got to check this out. And so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna watch some episodes. And so I go to download the first few episodes, and my computer was really slow, so it wasn't downloading. So I went to dinner and had like 5 plates of Singapore noodles, and I came back and watched the entire first season all in one go.
Whoa! Wow.
Wow.
Did you set the downloads in advance, like all the episodes in advance, or just the first one and then?
Yeah, I had them all set to come down while I was at dinner.
Oh wow! So yeah, does that mean you had your hopes up, or?
What?
Because if you didn't have your hopes up, I could just imagine you download one episode, and if you didn't like it, you just didn't.
Oh yeah,
don't download.
you know, I kind of trusted this friend. I was skeptical, but I trusted him, and I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna try it, and I was hooked.
Yay!
I was hooked.
That's awesome. ShadowPaint, do you have any questions thus far?
What inspired you to write these particular stories?
Oh. Well, the first one I wrote about 2 or 3 weeks after I found out about the notorious cupcakes.
Pretty in Pink?
And I found...
Oh.
Yeah.
Cupcakes.
I was sick and tired of people treating Pinkie Pie like this mindless plot device. Like, no, but seriously, like everyone was taking this character for granted and like just making her completely flat and non-dimensional. And I wanted to kind of remind everyone what Pinkie's purpose was in the show's story.
That's awesome, especially the.
That is awesome,
and especially the fact that you dropped the. Can you say it again? The how they taken her for granted, because that is a line in that is the main premise of the fanfic. So
yeah, well, I mean, I kind of got called out for soapboxing, but you know, I feel no shame. It's a soapbox, and I'm not going to apologize for that.
No, you shouldn't.
That's awesome.
It's a great fic. It's one of the first fics I heard from Azekahhs, and that's what eventually got me into doing this. That's why we're here. So at least part of.
I'm honored.
The circle is complete. Okay. So what's and behind the other story, the Journey of the Stork?
Oh, Journey of the Stork. That was that's a more fun story too. I was on a whim. I had picked up my Game Boy Advance copy of Yoshi's Island, and I had just played it for like 5 hours straight, and then I fell asleep listening to the prologue theme. You know the one, da na 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 na. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's one of my favorite video game songs of all time, and I had that running through my head. And so the next morning, I woke up, and I don't know if it was a dream or if I had the thought before I fell asleep, but I had this like urge to write a story about 2 fillies being carried home by a stork.
That's
and it kind of evolved into the story about Celestia and Luna.
Okay, so it's just inspiration and writing it out.
Yeah, I wrote it all in like the course of an hour and edited absolutely nothing in it. I posted it like an hour after I woke up.
Wow.
That's motivation right there.
Yeah, I wish I had.
I was compelled. I haven't been compelled like that since.
ShadowPaint, any questions?
Okay, regarding Journey of the Stork. When we were reading it earlier, we got kind of curious about, and so we started doing some research. And the size of an average stork, and it would be about roughly 10 pounds. A large one would be. A foal would be 130 pounds. So 2 of them would weigh about 260. After doing the math, we realized that's a shit ton of baby pony. And so we've got to ask, how big did you envision the stork?
I did not envision them weighing anything. It's based on a story you tell children. I really wasn't thinking about the details. I mean, it kind of describes the stork clawing these giant trenches in the ground. So I don't know. Maybe I subconsciously calculated that out. But
no, we were. Yeah, go ahead, ShadowPaint. You tell them.
Oh, I was just gonna say we were talking earlier when we're getting into the description of the stork. We're like, well, wait a minute, how big is that exactly? Because we could see during the winter wrap up, Rarity and Rainbow Dash Jane, they're going, okay, I did not sign up for this. We're gonna need a lot more twigs.
I just picture if these birds were to be nesting, they'd take entire forests and put them into a nest on a mountaintop.
You guys are great.
I like to imagine he took over the cave that after they got rid of the dragon in Dragon Shy, they just kind of pushed him in there. Okay, there you go. You got a place to sleep now.
And who's gonna bring in the baby storks?
Now every time I look at that story, I'm gonna think about the Helma Rock from Wind Waker.
Oh, God.
Just like this massive bird on top of a fortress.
Yeah, I was just
solar eclipses.
Solar
eclipse. Oh wait, no, that's a stork.
I was just reading the story, and at some point my physics logic module kicked in. Hey, it doesn't work like this. That's got to be either one massive stork or 2 really little ponies, or it's gonna be buzzing like a jet engine or a hummingbird to keep aloft. I chuckled all the way through.
And then we pretty much said, you know what, wait a minute. We are trying to rationalize a story that has a universe that has Pinkie Pie. And we both realized, all right, you know what, we're just going to jot this down as a question.
That was just a silly question we wanted to get out of the way before, heading over to the more...
That was fun. I had fun.
Let's see here. Those were the questions. Let's see here. Let's get into your most celebrated story, Pretty in Pink. It's gotten quite a lot of views and likes. It's got 27,000 views and 40.
I was surprised.
Likes. I mean,
that caught me off guard.
That's one massive story. I think EQD and Azekahhs also got a lot of traffic onto your FimFiction page right there, because I know I got there through Azekahhs. And I know
he helped a lot.
I know quite a few people getting here through EQD. So
just when you look at the breakdown, like most of it is Azekahhs.
Okay. Well, let's get to the story itself. What's the story about? Like the main premise, the conflict, and the resolution. Basically, a summary.
Well, basically, I mean, for those listening who haven't read it, it starts out with Pinkie's funeral, and the story just kind of goes through for the first part with Twilight kind of coming to terms with the fact that Pinkie is gone and trying to, accept the reality of the situation. And it's just sort of a guilt moment. But then, after Twilight has come to terms with it and is kind of okay with moving on, we have her trying to understand, what killed Pinkie, and Nurse Redheart goes on this whole spiel about how it's Twilight's fault for neglecting her, because Pinkie, by her very nature, would never live for herself. She only lives for others. She lives to make others happy. And so when Twilight started taking her for granted, Pinkie lost her will to live. And then, you know, it enters what someone would call a cliche, oh, it was all a dream moment, but I mean, there's this subplot introduced earlier about how Twilight has a latent ability to see the future, and you know, she's got all these regrets about how she wasn't able to find out sooner. But then when she wakes up from the dream, we found out that the first half of the story was actually a premonition about the future, and Twilight has an opportunity to change her future with Pinkie and make her feel appreciated.
Okay. ShadowPaint, do you have any questions? Because I've got a few at this point.
What do you hope the story accomplishes? I mean, what would you like to inspire in your readers?
Well, you know, I mean, the comments I've gotten on the story have said it better than I could ever say it. You know, people commenting how, like, the moment they read this story, they called up their friend they hadn't seen in forever and you know, just made amends with them, and just people making good with friends that they weren't on such good terms with. I've had several people comment saying stuff like that, and I think that right there is exactly what I was trying to accomplish. You know, making people stop taking others for granted, realize that everyone has their own battles in life, and that you can't really judge people for how they deal with those problems or what measures they might take to ensure the happiness of those around them, that you don't worry. That your best friend might be keeping a secret from you just so that you don't worry about them.
Yeah, and of course, taking people for granted, you only know what you have once you lose it. That's one of those paraphrased sayings. That's especially so true for people who are close to you. That here's the line from the story from the start somewhere. I've got it in front of me here. Something was missing. A facet of life in Ponyville. Something I had always taken for granted. I had never even considered that one day I might be without it. Right there, the facet of Pinkie in her life. You never consider the day you might be without the people around you, the people closest to you.
Yeah, and well, I mean, Twilight kind of just accepts that Pinkie is random and doesn't really question why Pinkie is random. That maybe there's an ulterior motive to keep others happy. And yeah,
I've got two further questions on the story itself. First one is probably quite simple. It's teen rated, and I was just wondering why.
Well, I wouldn't. You know, death is a difficult topic, and I wouldn't advise it. I mean, it's not. I would kind of put it like E10, maybe. I wouldn't. It's because I know. I mean, it's My Little Pony. There's probably going to be a kid or two who strays onto the site and reads a fanfic or two, like proper little kids. And I mean, death isn't really. It's not really. It's a more complex topic, and I want to be careful with that. I figure better safe than sorry. I'll give it a teen rating.
That's
I can understand that, definitely. Sorry, I just wanted to say real quick.
Go ahead.
Especially when it's a character that so many children love.
It's pretty much the mascot.
What parent right? I mean, what parent wants to have to answer, "Mommy, why is Pinkie Pie dead?" So I can completely understand the teen rating.
Oh wow. I had.
Well, I'm a parent, so.
Yeah. I had a further question on that. It just dropped. I'll get to that later.
Sorry.
No, it's not your fault. I just should have jotted it down. There's the plot and the story has the potential for three endings, basically. The way I envision it, there's the given the premise of her being able to see the future and Pinkie Pie dying, you could have either Twilight Sparkle being able to fix Pinkie, or being able to resolve it like she did, like just accept it, or go down the low road, just go spiraling down into state of depression and whatnot. What made you pick this particular, and why did you have her accept her death eventually, even though she still made an effort to make her life way more worthwhile?
Well, I didn't want to send the wrong message. I mean, the point is not avoiding disaster. It's prolonging life. Pinkie's death was inevitable in this scenario, and I wanted to make that clear. And I didn't want Twilight to cure Pinkie, because I mean, that's the whole purpose of the story is Twilight taking like appreciating what she has while she has it. Because if she's just going to end up having Pinkie for the rest of her life, I mean that defeats the whole purpose. And as for the like falling into a depression, I mean you can understand, you kind of want a story that's already this kind of downer. You wanna end it on a good note.
Yeah, it's a bittersweet ending at that, because it doesn't solve the problem, but it deals with the issues that might arise if she didn't accept the consequences of just life itself, because death is way more prevalent than life. So yeah, it's a way of accepting the way of life, basically.
It's just, you can't run away from your problems. You gotta face them. You gotta embrace the situation for what it is before you can overcome it.
Yeah,
and I think that's my biggest message.
In that regard, all of her friends are eventually, and herself too. Well, now that she's been turned into a princess, I'm not so sure. But at the time of the story, you
should have put a spoiler alert on that one.
Well, we're still not sure about this happening.
I've heard explanations that say it's not going to be permanent, and they have made sense. So I wouldn't take anything for granted at this point.
No, at this point it's all speculation. So I can only spoil something if it's actually been spoiled to me. So I don't think this is gonna ruin anyone's daydreams.
If you haven't heard of it, you haven't been on the internet.
Sorry.
It's okay. There's one thing about this story again. So all of her friends, and she too, are eventually gonna push up daisies. She's gonna. I picture this as her taking all of her friends, all if not most of her friends, for granted. At this point, it's just that Pinkie's case is now become special because she dies sooner than expected. But all of her friends eventually pass away, including herself. So how do you pick? It's not described in the story, but how do you envision her changing her relationship with the other friends of hers in regard to this story?
Well,
does she appreciate her other friends more too after Pinkie's passing, or is it just that because of Pinkie's passing sooner, that the appreciation factor has to get into her life? Because if your message is going to be appreciate those around you, I would imagine her relationship with the other ponies changing as well.
Well, I see the way I kind of envisioned it, and I know this is kind of lopsided and not quite in tune with the show's theme, but the way I envisioned it was that because of Pinkie Pie's nature, Twilight was taking Pinkie for granted more than her other friends, and that everything was kind of solid, but that Pinkie Pie was the one who needed it the most.
Okay.
That was kind of how I envisioned it.
Yeah, it's and that point is made clear in the story where Pinkie lives for other ponies.
Whereas like,
go ahead.
I mean, the others have their own ambitions, and they kind of live for themselves and just associate with Twilight. But Pinkie has a special relationship with everyone, and I think that's the fact that we've seen from the TV show that Twilight does in canon take that for granted, and I just So I think there's definitely something different about Pinkie that makes Twilight take her for granted, that doesn't cause her to take her other friends for granted.
Well, except for in the episode feeling Pinkie keen, but that's only because she's curious as a subject of investigation, instead of just as her friend in how Pinkie's doing on a personal level. I had another question, but I forgot again. Sorry for forgetting my questions. ShadowPaint, do you have any responses to things being said? Oh, here's my question again. It could be read as a Pinkie Pie Twilight shipfic at some point or another. It's not. I didn't read it as such, but it could be interpreted in that way. But it's not, is it?
It's it's whatever people want it to be. I mean, they're they're friends.
Okay.
They're close friends, and if you want to make it, if your headcanon says it's something more, I'm okay with that.
I can imagine people who lost either friends or loved ones, and depending on one of these two scenarios, they'll read the story differently.
Yeah, I was kind of vague about most topics because I wanted it to be kind of applicable to most grieving scenarios.
Okay. I like Azekahhs' reading where he kind of cries near the end.
that I'm very proud of that.
Let's see here. I'm just gonna get the final scene here. Oh, and there's a whole lot of crying faces in the comments. I just scrolled too far. At the procession, I stepped up to the altar and took a last look at my good friend. I shed a tear, but rather than holding bitterness in my heart, I held a smile on my face. Goodbye, and thanks for being an awesome friend. And Azekahhs just broke up at that line, which was awesome.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm proud of that.
ShadowPaint, do you have any further questions? To any replies, or maybe something popped up you want to ask?
Do you have any current projects you're working on or future plans that we can look forward to?
In fan fiction, I only have 2 projects open at the moment. One is an adaptation of a Japanese art house film called Departures. It features Octavia as the protagonist. The orchestra she plays for is disbanded, and she has to find a new line of work. And she finds a classified ad in the paper, and it doesn't demand any experience, and it pays well, but she doesn't know what it is. It only says they deal in departures, and it turns out to be a typo. They deal with the departed. It's a company that prepare. They're morticians. They prepare bodies for funeral services. And it pays well, but she's not sure if she can stomach the job.
Oh wow,
that's gonna be a good read.
That's one buck of a typo.
And then I've got another story that it's kind of ambitious because I've never written a story this long before, but I've kind of had the whole thing planned out since pretty much the day I joined the fandom. It's a story called Rook. It's actually, my plan is for it to be a trilogy, but you've got this colt he's a Pegasus colt, about 15 or 16, and he is the #1 fan of the Harmony Bearers. And 10 years in the future, and this is assuming Twilight doesn't go all but 10 years in the future, they're being honored because the Summer Sun celebration has returned to Ponyville for the 10th anniversary of their defeat of Nightmare Moon, and they're being honored, but at the service they disappear like in thin air, and nobody can remember they were there, and the time kind of rewrites itself, and Rook is the only one who remembers they exist. And so he ends up going on this 3-volume rescue mission to bring him home.
Oh wow,
nice!
That sounds like a very interesting story. Is this gonna involve like another team of 6 ponies trying to find the original bearers, or?
Well,
does he get any henchmen or villains to face?
There's one character I haven't fully fleshed out as a villain, and I don't want to talk too much about it because with any luck I will actually post this, and there will be spoilers. But he's kind of a curmudgeon-y old man type character. He's kind of a mad scientist, and he justifies his motives extremely well. And I think that kind of confliction is what's going to make this story if it happens.
Okay, well that certainly sounds interesting. I like plots that make sense. I just had one more remark. I forgot earlier, but it popped. It got back to me. You said that death isn't really a topic being dealt with in the show, but in the Hearts and Hooves episode, where the CMC is looking for a cold friend for Cheerilee, there's the old pony who seems to be addressing a crowd of ponies before a I don't know what you call it.
A funeral.
Yeah. Yeah, basically.
I guess I didn't notice that.
It looks like it looks like a funeral, and he's reading from a
book.
It
the difference with that. I'm sorry. Go on.
Oh no, you had the more thought out point, I'm guessing.
I was just gonna say they didn't really go into detail in that episode as far as the actual death is concerned, and the difference with Pretty in Pink is he goes into a little bit more detail with that.
Yeah.
It was with the episode. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, no, just a scene like that, a kid might not pick up. Oh, it's a funeral service. Just like the punch has been spiked jokes. All the alcohol references. The kid won't pick up on that. Parents will. It's what makes the show.
It might be something they put in there for the fans, like death is real in Equestria, but there's stuff in there for the adults, and there's stuff in there for fans as well. So who knows what they're trying to accomplish with little bits like that. Okay. I think we're nearing the end of the interview. Then there's the question: who is best pony?
It really depends. I've got. Every time I meet a fellow brony, I always have this answer kind of planned out. I've got it in 3 categories. For best of the main 6, Fluttershy. For best of the entire general cast, Luna. But out of the fandom in general, Lyra, as she appears in Background Pony by Short Skirts and Explosions.
Okay. I haven't heard of that particular bit.
I recommend reading it.
Okay.
I recommend reading it. It's amazing.
Okay, so it's a fan on interpretation of Lyra.
Yeah.
Okay. We might take you up on that story. How do you know how long it is, perhaps?
Insanely.
Oh, okay.
It's yeah.
That's pre-recorded material.
It's got like 20 chapters, and each is roughly 20,000 words. There are 400,000 words at the end.
Holy crap! That's about Follow the Equestria is 625,000. So 400,000 is going to take about. That's going to be about 50 hours of pre-recorded story material. You'd be listening.
I've only read 3.5 chapters.
You'd be listening for 2 days and 2 hours straight.
You'd make a fortune on audiobooks.
Yeah, that's one massive story. Oh wow. We can't even read.
That would take us about a year.
We can't even read one chapter a week if it's gonna be 20,000 words. Well, we typically read 12,000 words a week, so might be able to do that.
Each chapter is kind of its own self-enclosed story.
Okay.
And, the first few are like My Little Dashie sized. They're not terribly long. They only get longer the closer to the end because he was just writing nonstop.
Okay. Yeah. So that's the same as with the author of Follow the Equestria. I picked up on that story quite early on, and he was writing continuously, basically.
Yeah.
Even his proofreaders couldn't keep up with the speed he was writing at. That's how fast he wrote.
Oh wow!
So that's something you just put out there and jam it in the website, and people will read it. Okay. ShadowPaint, any further questions?
Other
than that,
no, just Can't wait to see what else you come out with, man. Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll try.
If your future endeavors are going to be like the stories you've put out as they are right now, that's going to be something worthwhile to read, especially during live streams and whatnot. As for the live stream for tonight, we're going to read these 2 stories right after this interview. So that's going to be fun.
Okay.
I think that's the end of the interview, most likely. Everyone, this was the interview with David Reinold, author of the story Pretty in Pink. I'll put the link in the description of this video. It's been an honor and a pleasure talking to you, David.
It has. The honor's all mine.
Okay. Any final remarks?
Not really. I think everything has already been said. Thank you for having me on the show.
You're welcome.
No problem. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
Okay, that's been the interview.
I'm not busy. It's been real.
Oh, yeah.